Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success. Welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show. I am your host, Alex Theuma, CEO, founder of SaaStock, and now also general partner at Back Future Ventures. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by a guest from New York who I met but didn't meet recently, and we'll get to that. Aviv Canaani, who is the CRO at Datarails. Aviv, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
Good to have you on the podcast. I'll get to the met but didn't meet in a second, but Datarails, I think like a Series B business, sort of raised 50 million in the last round. Have you done anything subsequently?
Yeah. So over the years, we raised over $100 million. We're in the FP&A space, selling to the office of the CFO.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And are you selling to any specific is it any CFO? Is it very broad? Is it specifically SaaS or any particular market? And maybe just how important is SaaS to you guys?
Yeah, so we're industry agnostic. We sell to every office of the CFO, especially SMB and the mid-market companies up to 4,000, 5,000 employees. And we sell mostly like in North America and in Europe. And we've been growing a lot over the past few years.
Very cool. And I also saw on LinkedIn, I don't think it was your LinkedIn, that The Information called you or voted you the number one most promising startup. I don't know if that was globally, but just the number one promising startup. It's a pretty big thing. What did they base that accolade on? Why do you think that you were voted the number one most promising startup? Maybe because you are.
Yeah, so thanks for mentioning it. I loved, the call out we got from The Information. I think the fact that there is so much potential in our field, like 90% of our market is greenfield. When I say greenfield, I mean the green of Excel. Most offices of CFO, regardless of industry, as I mentioned, are only using Excel to manage their financial reporting, budgeting, forecasting. They do everything on their laptop. They are on a computer. They don't really use the cloud as much. They don't use it really in any automated way, very manual way to update, month end, making sure they have everything there on Excel while everyone else already moved to the cloud. Like, for example, I'm in marketing and sales, so everything is in HubSpot, Salesforce, and all that. Everything's on the cloud. For most CFOs, everything's on their desktop on an Excel file. And this world is about to change. There's no doubt. The question is who's going to be the company that takes over it. And I think The Information decided to really highlight us based on the amazing growth we've been having over the past few years, as well as the potential of this entire market.
Would you say from your knowledge that, I think it makes sense, certainly true, that it is this greenfield opportunity and most CFOs are using Excel and they're not in the cloud. But what about SaaS CFOs? Like, are they usually using some kind of tool, or are they still using Excel and they're not in the cloud as well?
So they're still using Excel as well, because Excel is such an amazing tool. You can really do whatever you want with it, but it's not a database. And actually, like what we do, and I think that's what's really unique for us in the market, as opposed to companies in the FP&A space that sell to the enterprise and tell CFOs, drop your Excel files, move everything you're doing to the cloud. We tell our clients, you can stay in Excel. We will adapt to it. We'll be the back end of your Excel. We'll make sure that all the information you have across your different ERP, CRM, and all that, everything gets consolidated to your Excel file. So in a way, that kind of transition isn't as challenging for them because they can stay in Excel. They still have all of our online cloud capacity, like to do like all the dashboarding, reporting, everything on the cloud, but also they can do it in Excel. It actually connects Excel to the cloud and to all of the different systems that they're using.
Very cool. Good stuff. And the reason I invited you into the podcast, so I was in New York recently. It was a couple of weeks ago. Nice, like -4 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that was in Fahrenheit. And but this time I was wrapped up warmly, doing a bit of business development, number of meetings ahead of SaaStock USA, which returns in May in Austin. Some warmer weather. then. So that was very strategic. So I'm looking forward to that, removing the layers there. And it wasn't a meeting, but I attended a dinner from our friends hosted by Chili Piper, Go Nimbly, and Clay.com. And it was super cool. And we did this sort of round of introductions at the dinner. And I think I don't know, actually, I think I was probably one of the ones to go first. I think Alina put me from Chili Piper put me a little bit on the spot. I mean, well, it was to be expected. But then you were at the other end of this table of like 20 people. So you're really the furthest away that you could be from me. And hopefully that wasn't deliberate. But when you got up, did your intro, said, I'm from Datarails. I don't think you'd have said that we're the number one most promising startup, but you should have. That you or Alina said that, you're growing the business really well through TikTok. And then the penny dropped for me. I was like, this is where I've seen you guys before, because I'm on TikTok a lot. I'm trying to, manage this obsession. It's less of an obsession now, but I just see you guys almost every day when I'm on TikTok. And I'm not a CFO, by the way, but I still see you.
So don't click on the ads. It costs me money.
Yeah,
only
exactly.
the CFO should click.
I don't click. I watch, but maybe I don't watch the whole thing. But the impression was that these were kind of done in a fun way as well. But so when I say we met, but we didn't meet, like, unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to have the conversation because you were too far away, within that setting. But I did reach out afterwards and said, oh, look, I've heard it's a great business. I've seen you guys on TikTok. I heard you're growing your business through TikTok really well. I don't know many other SaaS companies that are doing that. This could be super interesting, right? And so I guess kind of with that, would love to get into that and maybe the journey of like, because I understand it wasn't the first channel. You've been, doing other ads, other platforms as well. Kind of how you got to that, and how you're getting it to work for you, and what you can share around that.
Yes, I'm happy. We're getting to chat now, and I'll share like my story and how the end result is really for us to get into TikTok. Actually, I was leading marketing 3.5 years ago in a different startup, and one day Eyal Cohen, one of the co-founders of Datarails, reached out to me on LinkedIn. I looked him up a bit. I'm like, okay, this is a serious guy. Already built a $1 billion company, which is WalkMe, just got sold by 1.5 billion. And when him and Didi, the CEO, convinced me to join the company, it was really in infancy. When the company just started, they had like 40 outbound SDRs, just getting people on calls, trying to set up meetings for the account executives. And they told me, okay, try to build marketing. Let's see what can happen. And now fast forward like 3.5 years later, from a company that was like 90% outbound, we're 90% inbound. Most of our sales come from marketing. That's also one of the reasons why a year and a half ago, the founders asked me to also manage the sales department. So from being VP marketing, I was VP marketing and sales, and now CRO. The main challenge is that as VP marketing, I could blame sales for not closing my amazing leads. And as VP sales, I can blame marketing for sending shitty leads. But now I actually have to find the right balance between everything. And I think the reason that we were successful in what we're doing in marketing is that we took this kind of concept where even the fact we're selling to CFOs doesn't mean they're not individuals. At the end of the day, it's still H2H. It's human to human. They have a sense of humor. They're passionate about their work. We're not selling anything for a business. We're selling it to people who happen to be CFOs in different organizations. So when I built the team, we hired a lot of people actually from B2C backgrounds. We have created organically an amazing like LinkedIn channel with fun memes and thought leadership that we get a lot of comments and likes on. And also we started the leading podcast in the FP&A space. If you love podcasts, you can listen to FP&A Today. Super niche, super geeky, only if you're in FP&A, but our audience loves it. And on the paid side, as opposed to like most of the CMOs I speak with that are mostly focused on Google or LinkedIn when selling to CFOs or even going to events, we decided to crack Facebook, which means, Meta, Facebook, Instagram. And we were able to do so. We created fun and engaging content, understanding like what works in these platforms, what kind of messaging is actually relevant for this target audience, and became one of our main growth channels. And after doing that for a few years, we decided, okay, let's start exploring TikTok as well, because it's kind of similar, to Instagram. So we just started like less than a year ago, and we started seeing like some good success there. And TikTok loves us now because we're all their case studies, because it's something that I think a lot of other CMOs or CROs are not going to think is obvious. We sell to CFOs through TikTok, and yes, it can work.
So there are a lot of, I guess as you say, well, we're all human. And then like, I guess if I look back a year, maybe even 2 years ago, like a lot of people, certainly in B2B, when I was having these conversations, had a perception that TikTok wasn't very good for B2B and that their audience wasn't on there. And if we think about CFOs, I don't want to offend any CFOs here, but I'm thinking some slightly older, a demographic here, and maybe you can also sort of correct me on that. But I think there was a perception, and what I was seeing and hearing from like, folks, and specifically in B2B SaaS, that we're not really sure about TikTok. Is it just for dancing? I think people perceptions around that like have gone. But in terms of, it's like a huge app, has a big audience there, and that really any demographic is there, and whether you're, a CFO individual, or whether in your business, that it's somewhere that you're on, you're active on that, and like just making that jump, let's say from Facebook to TikTok. Do you ever have those preconceptions? Did you say, well, let's just try it and see if the audience is there?
Yeah. We always like experiment and try new things. We're very data driven in our marketing department. We also tried other channels to do paid media like Twitter or Reddit, and it wasn't as successful. Like for example, Reddit, I think like organic stuff works better. Twitter, we just didn't figure out. So the reason we're staying with TikTok is because we figure it out, like to some degree. It's important to mention. We feel like it's much better than how it was when we started. It's still not the same results like we get from Meta, but it's definitely heading in the right direction. And even I can share about myself. A few years ago when TikTok was gaining more popularity, I'm like, okay, I'm leading marketing. I need to learn more about TikTok. So I download it, scroll through different things, and the thing is, it's really good. It's kind of addictive. Once you start playing with it, and I'm not surprised at all that there is CFOs or director of finance, FP&A, and all that are there. Of course, they're not looking for job-related stuff when they're on these channels, but it's a good platform. You wanna get to your target audience where they are. And are most CFOs there? Maybe not, but we are definitely finding people. And the way that we know that it's working is based on attribution. Like we're looking at a few different things, which are not obvious. It's important to mention direct attribution doesn't work the best in TikTok yet, but they see it and then they look for us. So we, in addition to direct attribution, we also ask on our site, how did you hear about us? Which is an open field. It's not like a list, so people can write whatever they want. In addition, the SDRs that call them also ask how did they hear about us, and then we can also go to Gong and look for different keywords, and we see people are mentioning TikTok, whether it's on the forum, whether it's on calls. We just had recently, talking about like an anecdote, someone jumping on an integration call, like after they sign with us, and they mentioned to the customer success manager, they want to share like a funny story, and they mentioned that they actually gave their kid their phone, and they were scrolling through TikTok. And at some point, they saw an ad for our FP&A solution. So the kid gave it to the dad saying, okay, check it out. It might be relevant for you. The dad booked a meeting and we got a client. So, and we have many of these.
Very cool. And I think that, appreciate you sharing that, because it's like an important point around direct attribution and like having this form. But you don't only do that. It's like, how did you hear about us, right? And again, I just see a lot of companies, they don't have this, right? And it's just super powerful data, right, to understand the channels that are working.
Yeah, and it's funny, also sometimes it can work in both ways. Sometimes people are shy, like we hear them, how did you hear about us? They write LinkedIn, but we see the attribution coming from TikTok. It's like they didn't want to say TikTok.
Sort of TikTok shame. Makes sense. Like so you're 90% inbound now, and is that almost all through ads and paid ads, or what of it?
Yeah, I think like the thing that works the best for us, especially as we scale, is really the ads across the different channels, like I mentioned, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now also TikTok. We have great campaign managers running it. And like I mentioned, we also build like good organic channels like the podcast, FP&A Today, and also our organic LinkedIn channel. And we are starting to put more effort in diversifying. So we have now built a partnership team and seems like it's going to have like some good success, and also Outbound. And so we want to diversify, like, so, like when you invest, they always tell you like you have to diversify. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And so we're trying like a few different things, but we build a brand. And I think by building a brand and being on places like TikTok or like Instagram, and like you mentioned, you saw the ads. Like I mentioned something in the dinner, and then you recognize it. It once you do something like that, it also makes outbound easier, or partnership easier, because now when an outbound rep, SDR, is going to call someone and they're going to say Datarails, people already know who we are. They might have seen the ads. Now, we can spend like all this time trying to figure out what is the right attribution. Is it outbound? Is it inbound and all that? But sometimes it's all together. Like, I wish the world was as easier just saying it's 100% this or 100% that. Sometimes it's a mix of things. And I really believe that by building this kind of brand presence and showing all these ads, also outbound is going to be easier.
No, 100% agree on that. And I guess you mentioned, obviously, like, okay, TikTok's not the only channel, but you figured it out and it's working for you, but you're also doing Google, you're doing Facebook, you're doing LinkedIn. Is there one that performs the best, which gets the majority of the budget? Is it like, how is it spread?
So it's more or less spread similarly between Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Like, it can ebb and flow based on the specific month or quarter. TikTok is relatively new. It's gaining, more presence here, but it's still not as big as the other ones. Because again, I think like they really spend a lot of time building an algorithm to compete with Meta. It's still not completely there, but even things, like lookalikes that work in Meta is working for us, and being able to really signal from the beginning of our ads for people that it's relevant for them. For example, you see something that says, a title, it's a CFO, or the first words or something about FP&A. Like with time, TikTok's algorithm, this is what makes them successful, shows that the people that actually hear CFO and FP&A actually stay for a few more seconds on the ad and want to consume it. And it means it's relevant for them, and then it finds people that are similar to them. So we really want to make sure that from the beginning, like, we create something that is only relevant for our target audience.
Do you adjust your ads per channel? So like I've only seen you guys on TikTok, right? And I guess like you say, like with Facebook or with LinkedIn, you could probably be a little bit more targeted. I'm not a CFO, so I'm probably not seeing those ads. But is it the same ad across all platforms, or do you adapt it to the different platform and their style?
No, we have to adapt it. I think like what works in LinkedIn is sometimes different. Sometimes you can work with static stuff or more professional stuff on LinkedIn, but I'll give you the example of TikTok. The only thing that works for us in TikTok is UGC ads, user-generated content that we do with either clients or actors. A lot of like funny little skits. I can even give an example. One of our best performing ads is something actually I saw. Usually it comes from the team, but I saw this TikTok ad for, I think it was a B2C company, something that someone's asked a lady a question, and whatever they ask, she says, yup. Oh, does it do this? Yup. Does it do this? Yup. So I sent it to the team. I'm like, let's try to do something like that for Datarails. It's been one of our best performing ads on TikTok. So I think it's really understanding, the channel you're focused on, and you have to create, the fun, engaging videos that align, with what works in the channel, but, with our own spin of marketing our own software.
I guess now with the knowledge that obviously TikTok is not your only channel to grow the business, that you have Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. Did you have any sort of like concerns at all about, like, I guess, do we call it a temporary ban of TikTok in the US, or the challenges there? My feeling is it's probably going to come back. I actually don't know, given that I'm not there, whether it is banned and whether you can do that at the moment, and how that would impact the business and your budget.
Yeah, so it was like banned for a few hours, and like I was exchanging notes that same day with our user acquisition team. It's like, oh, we have to stop everything. Let's move it to Meta, and then like it came back, so we could continue. So I don't know, what eventually is going to be the political decision if to keep it or not. I think there's a lot of pros and cons in terms of how you see that business and influence from China and your political perspective. But for now, the way we see it, if it works, we want to try it. And yeah, it's also important to mention that, think about it, that we work, and we don't just do it ourselves. We work with account managers there. It's the same way we have account managers on Google or on Facebook or on LinkedIn. There's account managers there, so they're incentivized to make it work, and they love the fact that we are a B2B company that's making it work. They got us all these case studies now about us, so they're very dedicated to our success, especially with the amount of budget like we're spending. So they will go above and beyond to make it successful. And I think it's the same, the way we see it is it's a huge opportunity, the same way that if you would advertise in Facebook, when advertising just started in Facebook, it would be super cheap, super effective. Now we know the costs really went up. So I think TikTok is really a place that is not as utilized by B2B companies. So there's so much potential to get good traction there and get in front of the right audience.
Would you typically only have an account manager if you're spending a certain amount of budget, or is that
Yeah,
something?
if you spend a certain amount of budget, again, for every channel, it's a bit different, but you can always connect with them and ask. But I think, a SaaS company like in our scale, usually we would work with account managers.
And it probably wouldn't be a podcast in 2025 without asking something about AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess with your CRO hat on and looking at both sales and marketing, how are you looking at, and Datarails looking at using AI, perhaps to either generate more opportunity, about less so like on the product on Datarails itself, but how you're thinking about it, with your teams and maybe things that you might already be doing or looking to do?
Yeah, okay. So I'll focus really on what I do as like a CRO managing marketing and sales. It is important to mention this is really what differentiates us as a product in Datarails as opposed to our competitors that, we're AI native, we're focused on AI solutions. There's no doubt that FP&A space is going to be changed by AI. But I want to talk really about what we do in our world. So a lot of the messaging that goes through, let's say, our email campaigns are based on AI. We even, I'll give you an example, like I want to give like more of the anecdote. So we used to have like a product marketing manager that was great and really helped the team with copywriting and thinking about ads. But now like she left and at some point we weren't sure like what to do. But then we have AI. So AI is like the best tool to have, even like our motion designer or creative manager just work with it. You feed to it like all of your messaging, all your positioning, and then they can just create a lot of ads. Maybe that's something we didn't discuss, but connecting it to TikTok. What works in TikTok and Facebook is you have to create a lot. You can't just create one or two. Like the algorithms are smart, feed it 20, 30, 40 different videos. It will figure out what works. So we want to give the creative team the tools to run fast. And AI is one of the things that really help them as they're thinking about it. And again, there's so many things we're doing, but I want to connect it to things we touched on. So I mentioned how we don't have a drop-down list for how did you hear about us, because I want to understand like what exactly did they see? Like, for example, if I just had a drop-down and someone would say LinkedIn, how is that helpful? Like, was it a post they saw from our company? Was it a friend that posted something, an influencer? I want to know that. The problem with having free text is that it's very hard to organize and say, okay, 30% was LinkedIn, 20% was this. But with AI, we actually add all their answers together, and the AI now decides to bucket it like in different categories. So it's helping us understand better the attribution, and then we can see more TikTok stuff and other things that it would be much harder to actually understand if we didn't leverage AI to do our work. But again, that's just like touching a few things. We're really incorporating it across like a lot of the different things we do.
And when you say the AI, what specific AI are you using in those instances?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's like the examples I mentioned is more basic stuff. We're using ChatGPT. We use like other things like Pipedrive, to create more outgoing campaigns like on LinkedIn. We just started to use Momentum to track sales calls and give us specific insights based on what clients are saying, or give feedback, to the specific AEs. It's really countless. Like the way we see it, or at least I see it as, leading the marketing and sales department. I think the way for us to scale, as opposed to the past, is just not hiring a lot of people, but creating, the right tools in place I'd rather have like less team, super smart, that know how to leverage AI, than just a lot of people doing very basic stuff that AI can replace them with. I gave like a few of these examples, but I think it's really endless. And that's why I also like listening to podcasts, like your podcast or other ones, to learn from people about how they're using it. Like I mentioned, like how did you hear about it? It's like one example, but I think everyone's trying to figure it out. That's why even the dinner that we went to, it's good to go to all these places and talk and figure out. Like Clay was also talking there about how their people are leveraging their tool, and you never know, like things change now so fast. You want to be on top of the latest trends and best practices.
What do you think is potentially like the hardest thing around paid ads now for CROs, CMOs, like in 2025? What are the big challenges there?
So there's a few. I think the one is like costs are going up. Ads today are much more expensive than they were 3-4 years ago. So you want to be able to show a good return on investment. I think it's also the ads being more expensive. And also, we're not in the same market we were in 2020 or 2021, where you need to show efficiency in what you're doing. It's not the growth at all costs. I think the second one, and we touched on that, is really the attribution with the cookieless world and all that, and like all the different challenges they're having from companies like Apple and so forth. Like sometimes you're just not going to know. You have to mix, I think, here science and art. So yeah, we're going to ask, how do you hear about us? SDRs are going to ask, but it's never going to be 100%. It's never going to be something obvious that, okay, let's say now we get another 100K to our budget if we know if to spend it in Facebook or YouTube or TikTok. Because the attribution is difficult, like we have to make more estimations, and I think it's fine. I think it's completely fine, and people need to understand it's art and science.
What about maybe if there were any personal challenges or lessons learned from moving from VP of marketing into the CRO role, and what you can share around that transition?
Yeah, so moving into sales is quite different. I had to learn a lot and speak a lot with the sales team and learn about their challenges for them. There was also like a surprise. All of a sudden, this marketing guy comes for sales. They were afraid now I'm going to blame. If we don't get our targets, I'm going to blame the sales team and not the marketing team. But then I think it all comes down to really having the right OKRs and the right goals. Explain to them from the beginning, like our goal is to hit the revenue numbers. It doesn't matter, not only me, but also for the marketing team. It's not about MQLs or the amount of meetings you set or opportunities. At the end of the day, we're all here for the same goal. And but I think what's more challenging, if you think about it, I think as a CRO, my goal is to build a go-to-market engine that is efficient, from the lead at the beginning that comes from TikTok or whatever, to making a closed one opportunity. So we take into account, all the budget that we're spending, but also the salaries for everyone and the commissions and so forth. But you have to make it as efficient as possible to make it work. And I think the challenge for marketing to sales, and in sales, it's about the people. Well, marketing can be the tools. In marketing, it's much easier to decide, okay, Twitter is not working, let's drop Twitter. Or this campaign isn't working, let's shut it off. Let's start this, let's start that. In sales, it's hard. It's human beings. Some people might have like a tough month or a better quarter afterwards. Sometimes, you hire someone, you think they're going to be great. You have to make a tough decision to let them go before they spend too much time off all your leads. And I'll add one aspect to it, like the way we see it in our go-to-market machine, because we built a very unique model where our account executives don't even prospect. That's why we get like the account executive from our top competitors want to join us. They don't prospect at all. We fill their calendars with meetings. We build like this kind of very data driven machine where even when we hire another AE, we increase the marketing budget. We are at the point we can estimate how many meetings we can actually generate based on marketing. But the challenge here in terms of sales is that if there is an account executive that isn't as good, they're going to spend a lot of money. Like every meeting can cost thousands of dollars. So being more nimble there and understanding like how to hire the right people, how to let go of people that aren't that good, or promoting the top performers is really critical. And again, it's much harder to do when you're talking about actually human beings than just campaigns and marketing channels.
Makes sense, and thanks for sharing that. And you mentioned also, like from your own like personal learning perspective, you listen to a lot of podcasts, you go to these dinners and connect with your peers. Maybe can you share like a couple of like as a CRO of a scaling SaaS company, like what podcasts you're listening to or books that you're kind of reading to help you thrive in your role?
Yeah. So I'll start, with the communities I'm at. So the two communities I'm at that like bring me the most value is one is called the GCMOs, global CMOs, especially people from my background, which are Israeli, but focus, on European and North American markets. So we have like a great community. There's events, WhatsApp groups where people just share ideas. So that's one thing that works great. For CMOs, the other one I'm at, which is really brilliant, and this I think how we got to meet, is also Pavilion. I joined Pavilion. They have like different Slack communities, for CROs, for CMOs, for partnership managers. I also did their CRO school, their CMO school. They have so much content. They're like in the Slack channels, and they create like so many reports. I went to their CRO event and their CMO event, and plan to go to a few more this year. And I think it's one of those things that I know like a lot of people are cynical about these communities or events. And I think you would go to an event, and sometimes you hear a lot of the stuff you already know. But even if you get like one insight that's good, and then you want to implement in the team, it's totally worth it. Like the reason, they pay me like as a CRO and the other CRO or CMO is just not to just do one-on-one meetings like all day, is every now and then like come with one really good idea, something that can really move the needle. And I think it's very important. That's my recommendation for every CRO, CMO, or any other C-level executives. You have to allocate enough time just to speak with people in your community, chat. You get to meet great people. Eventually we got to meet like in that event. And it's so important because there's no school for like B2B marketing or sales and all that. And like you asked me about AI, things are changing so fast. You want to be on top of it. You want to understand what their best practices and steal the best ideas.
Yeah, no, I 100% wholeheartedly agree. And that's why we built SaaStock. And it's probably a nice segue again, just to plug SaaStock USA, because this is where SaaS founders and their teams can come together and get this kind of peer-to-peer learning, do the one-to-one meetings, but also just connect with other people, see what they're doing, have that unblock, create this community, and that's why we've been doing what we've been doing for 10 years. So looking forward to be back in Austin, getting everybody together again for that. Well, Aviv, thank you so much. Like, good to now have met and like properly met, even though we've met in person, but we didn't have that opportunity to chat in depth, and now I feel we've cracked that. So thanks for coming on the podcast, sharing the insights, the great success that you've brought building this go-to-market engine that works for Datarails. So big congrats on that, and thank you for sharing with the SaaStock community.
Thank you so much, Alex. It was great being here. If anyone wants to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. And thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thanks, Aviv.